Hello and welcome to the Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. I'm your host, Macy Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friend. If you've been looking for a podcast geared towards your growth, self-awareness, navigating your brain's daily mind drama, and deep inner work to become your highest and best self, you are in the perfect place. Let's get started. Happy Monday. Welcome back to another episode of Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. I'm Macy, and I'm so excited to have you here with me this week, whether you're brand new or you're returning. Thank you for being here. So we're going to dive right in today. Typically, my podcast episodes are, under 30 minutes. I don't know how long this one will be today because we're going to dive into emotional intelligence a little bit deeper. I actually had a different episode planned, but then something happened today and I myself had to exercise so much emotional intelligence, which really demonstrated my growth over the years. And I thought that it would be kind of fun to do more of a deep dive into emotional intelligence if you don't really understand it or know what it is. And it also just so happens that last week I passed my exam with flying colors to be certified in emotional intelligence as an emotional intelligence coach. So that's a niche of mine. And then I can also provide my clients with the formal kind of assessment, which is scientifically based, and it measures your emotional intelligence. And so because I have expanded my business not only to work with, clients like you, I also now am expanding my business to work with corporate companies. I'll get hired on with like HR if they have a developmental budget allotted for their employees. And I am now going to be working with leaders, executives, people that are high up and in charge of leading other people. And the focus is going to be helping them become their highest selves in leadership with a very strong focus on emotional intelligence. And so I wanted to be able to get certified to administer the assessment so that for my one-on-one clients moving forward, and for any corporate clients moving forward, I am able to actually physically see where they're at and help them improve their scores so that they are happy, healthy, the company's happy and healthy. That helps, if you're an employee somewhere, you know what it's like to have maybe a toxic work environment. You also maybe know what it's like to have an amazing supportive environment. And a lot of that is determined by who is leading you in your position. So I really want to be able to help people become their highest selves, not only in life, but leadership roles as well. Because I think as a leader, there's nothing worse than feeling confused on how to lead other people who are different than you, but also just wanting to do your best and understand yourself and why maybe you get triggered the way you do, and why maybe your staff gets triggered the way that they do, and knowing exactly what to do. So that's the direction of my business, and I'm really excited about it. So just know that if you are a one-on-one client moving forward in your 6-month or 12-month contract, we will start with an emotional intelligence questionnaire, and you'll get to see exactly what your emotional intelligence is. And interestingly enough, I can't remember if I talked about this. I took this assessment back in 2013. It was a requirement for us in occupational therapy school because they wanted to see how we were going to cope with a lot of stressors entering the health field and entering a field that you're working in so many settings with so many different types of people, diagnoses, and back then in 2013, my emotional intelligence was certainly not as high as it is today. So the first thing I want to cover is the question that a lot of people will ask, and it's, does emotional intelligence have anything to do with my IQ? And the short answer is no, it has zero to do with someone's IQ and how smart they are. Okay, your emotional intelligence is strictly how you respond emotionally, internally to things happening outside of your control and within yourself. Okay, so it's really about your emotional power at any given time and your awareness of your emotions at any given time. It has absolutely nothing to do with a high IQ. So if someone says, I have a very high IQ, I'm very intelligent, they may still have super low emotional intelligence if they're not aware of how they respond to things emotionally. So I think that that's very interesting. And I feel like in some ways, looking at my scores from back in 2013, I had a good amount of emotional intelligence because of things that I had been through from a young age, like the different traumas and stuff. It made me grow up very quickly and respond to things, kind of maybe differently than peers who had never been through something. But at the same time, there were also categories within that were lower because I had carried so much stress my entire life that in many ways, anytime something emotionally drained me or became very stressful, I would immediately shut down. And that is having like a lack of emotional intelligence or blaming or placing the responsibility on someone else. Those are emotional intelligence skills as well. So I thought we'd do a deep dive into this today so that you have a better understanding. And the reason being is because I went through the drive-through line today. I actually went to McDonald's. We never really eat McDonald's, but Chick-fil-A was closed, which was so disappointing. I had texted my husband and asked what he wanted from Chick-fil-A because I was leaving TJ Maxx, perfect Sunday. And he told me his order, and then I went on the app to place it, and it said closed. And I was just like, it's always Hobby Lobby and Chick-fil-A. The days that I want to go, man, it's always on a Sunday. So we had a plan B, and I drove to McDonald's. I got my husband's order of what he wanted, and then I wanted some nuggets. So in the drive-thru line at the Intercom, I order a 10-piece nugget meal. I tell them my sauces with a medium fry and a drink. And then I order my husband's 2 cheeseburger meal, make it a large, and a drink. Okay. And I get around, I pay for my meal, and then I get to the second window. And I always check my bag because the only place I can go to where there's usually never a mistake is Chick-fil-A, which is one of the reasons I go there. I go there because of their leadership. So speaking of leadership and just customer service, to me, it's worth the price. It's worth the, long lines. It's worth all of the things because I love interacting with their people. Their culture in corporate is really amazing. So if anybody from Chick-fil-A ever listens to this and knows the CEO and the higher ups teams, that's honestly like why I'm such a Chick-fil-A fiend. I know that even if the line is wrapped around the building twice, they get me through really fast. They're very polite. They always have a smile on their face. They always say it's their pleasure, even if they're dying inside, because again, they probably have a good amount of emotional intelligence in their training. And it's just really worth it. Whereas I go through other drive-through lines and a lot of times I'm just like, it's not even worth it. Like, I just don't even want to go. So I get to the second line or window at McDonald's, and they hand me, my bag, and they hand me the first drink, and then they say, we're just waiting on your second drink. And I opened the bag and I realized that they didn't put my fries in there. They had my 10-piece nugget, they had my, drink, but they didn't have my fries. So when she opened the window back up, she said, is everything okay? And I said, oh, you all forgot my fry. And she said, okay, what size? And I said, I think just whatever comes with the 10-piece nugget meal. I think it's just a medium. And she said, okay. So she walks to the back where the cooks are doing the fries. And then she walks back and she says, can I see your receipt before I give you fries? I was like, sure. So she grabs my receipt and she walks away again. And she comes back and she said, no, you didn't get fries. And I was like, no, I did. I ordered on the Intercom the 10-piece nugget meal. And she said, well, she goes, you don't get fries. It's not on the receipt. And I said, okay, well, can I just speak to the manager really quickly? Now, I want to pause and talk about this because in the past, any kind of assertiveness would have made me crumble. I never even would have asked for a manager in the past, even if whether the error was on my part or theirs, I just would not do that because I hated conflict that much. And so a part of my lack of emotional intelligence, even back in the day, was being a people pleaser and not wanting to rock the boat and not knowing how to stand up for myself if someone came at me with aggression, not knowing how to handle my own emotion. And so for my brain even predicting that it may cause drama made me shut down, and I never would actually stand up for myself or ask questions. So that in itself, of me saying, can I please speak with the manager? I didn't say it nasty or anything like that. That assertiveness was a big growth moment, even for me after years of coaching and personal development, because in the past I never would have messed with it. I would have just went home and complained and, would have been like, oh, they didn't give me my fries and whatever, and my husband would have been the assertive one and said, no, let's call back and make them give you their the fries. And so I was proud of myself for that moment. Okay. So going back into the situation, I asked for the manager. And the girl at the window was like, yeah, sure. So she gets the manager, and the manager comes over and she was like, okay, how can I help you? And I said, well, I ordered the 10-piece nugget meal with fries and a drink, and you all gave me the nuggets and you gave me the drink, but no fries. And she said, yeah, on your receipt, it doesn't show fries. And she said, so you didn't pay for them, so you don't get fries. And I was like, okay. I said, I understand that. I said, they must have misheard me on the intercom, which is fine. I said, but I would like to have fries. And she responded back, but you didn't pay for the fries. And I was like, I understand that. I'm happy to pay for the fries, but I'm just telling you that is what I ordered. I ordered 2 cheeseburgers, a large fry, and a large drink. And then I ordered a chicken nugget meal, which was supposed to have fries and a drink. And she was like, yeah, but on the receipt, there's no fries, so you don't get fries. And guys, I just want to tell you that even okay, first of all, maybe 8 years ago, I just would have crumbled and been like, never mind, and just people pleased my way out of here. Even with all of the emotional intelligence work, I could still feel my blood beginning to boil. I was becoming so mad. And so this is where the awareness is so important, right? And where a lot of people go wrong in their emotional intelligence skills specifically, is that the moment you become triggered, you see red and you just explode. And that's what creates more division between people and not effective communication, because you're hot and they're getting hot. And because energy matches other energy without awareness, okay, if I'm getting blown up without awareness of it, okay, then she can feel it and she starts getting blown up, maybe without awareness of it, unless she does this work on her own. And then you have a bad situation, okay? So what I noticed, and I can, share with you guys here, is that I could feel myself becoming increasingly frustrated because I was just at that point trying to get her to understand what I ordered, and that the only thing that I was trying to say is that I want the fries and I will even pay for them. And it seemed like she just was not understanding me, and she felt like, and she probably felt misunderstood too, because she was trying to tell me like, hey, you didn't pay for the fries, so we're not just going to give them to you. I think that's what she thought I was asking. Okay, and part of the customer service experience was like, a lot of times at places like that, they'll say, okay, that was a mistake on our part. They probably put in the system wrong. Let's take care of you. That was not the case here, which wasn't a huge deal. It was just a matter of, can you please just let me pay for some fries, because that's what's missing from my bag. But instead of that, she was like, okay, well, let me see your bag. And so I'm pointing the bag to her, and she goes, so what's missing? And I said, what's missing is just the fries that I would have expected to have with the 10-piece nugget meal. And she was like, but you didn't order a meal. And I was like, I understand that is what you're saying. I said, but I'm just confused because I did order the meal on the intercom, and they gave me the drink for it, and they gave me the nuggets for it. I'm only missing a fry. I just want to pay for the fry. And she was like, so do you need 2 cheeseburgers and 2 fries? And I said, no, I have the 2 cheeseburgers and the fry. I just need a fry for myself. And she was like, so you don't want the cheeseburger meal at all? And I'm like, no, I do want the cheeseburger meal. That's my husband's food. I said, my food was the 10-piece chicken nugget, a fry, and a drink. She said, but you didn't order a fry. And I'm like, I understand that, but I am missing a fry that I would like, even if I have to pay for it. And she goes, well, you'd have to pay for it. And I'm like, that's totally fine. And I internally, you guys, like separating myself from myself, right? So this is what I talk about whenever I say, how would your highest self respond versus your everyday self? Okay. My everyday self was ready to like crawl into that window and grab someone and start screaming. Like when I tell you, you're probably like, Macy, oh my gosh. But I seriously had all the cuss words in my head. I was name calling in my head. I was just like, how stupid can this person be? I know that's not nice, but that's where my brain went, because I'm still human. Just because I've done this work for a long time doesn't mean that I don't still have human experiences. What I really want to point out to you is my ability to separate myself in the moment that it was happening from my everyday self to my highest self. My highest self was able to remain calm and still in a cool, collected way, as angry as I felt internally, tell her what I was wanting and expecting and trying to get on her level of why she was confused. And, in the moment I was heated, and when I drove away, they said, well, go ahead and pay for it. It's $3 something, so I hand them my card, and then they give me the fries, and they're laughing on the inside. And I felt like screaming, but I drove away after we got that all sorted out. And here's another example of emotional intelligence, right? Like in the car, I just took some deep breaths, and instead of continuing to cuss her out in my head, I really went into how can I understand what she was experiencing in this moment. Now, what she experienced as the manager was looking at a receipt where really the error came from the person who rung it up into the computer. Okay, and so what she saw on the receipt was 10 McNuggets, and what had actually happened, I don't know how this happened, but even though the receipt said 10 McNuggets, somehow someone still read on the ticket that it included a drink. That's what was like totally throwing us off, because they gave me everything but the fries as if it were a meal. But the ticket, according to her, was not a meal. So it was just a whole mess, okay? But by the time that I got home, I was already calm, cool, and collected. Did I tell my husband about it? Yes, I went through the whole story. He used to work at McDonald's. Actually, when we first started dating, my husband was like one of the assistant managers at McDonald's when we were like 17 years old or 18 years old. So anytime I have a McDonald's story, I tell him, because he used to be, an assistant manager there on Sundays when he wasn't playing all his sports. But when I was in the car initially mad, I kept thinking, like when she was trying to talk to me, like there were so many moments where I thought, I cannot wait to reach out to corporate and report you for being so ridiculous. And then by the time that I got, on my drive closer to home, I had managed my own mind and saying like, okay, instead of me staying in this heated frenzy where I'm just so annoyed with her, let me check in with myself and then also extend what may have been happening in her mind and how I could have handled myself better. And by the time I got home, I realized that there were multiple ways I could have handled myself better. Even though I wasn't rude, I definitely could have communicated more clearly had I not allowed myself to get even as frazzled and angry as I was. So here's the thing about emotional intelligence, and especially in terms of the assessment itself. Emotional intelligence is made up of 5 main things. And the first part is your self-perception. So this is how you see yourself. Okay. And it's made up of your self-regard. So that is like, do you respect yourself? Do you feel confident? It's made up of your self-actualization. And that is like your willingness to engage in self-improvement, pursue things that are meaningful to you. And then your emotional self-awareness. And that is, you understanding your own emotions. So that makes up the self-perception component of your emotional intelligence, and is so important, and probably the biggest piece of work that we do together here on this podcast is helping you truly understand yourself so that you can become your highest self. My highest self stepped in that moment to keep from popping off because my everyday self, like my inner child, inner adolescent was just totally spazzing out, about to just cuss someone out. I mean, I got that upset over this stupid ordeal. And the thing about it is there are really people, you guys, and maybe someone listening is one of them, where these are the people, like when situations happen like this, where they throw the drinks at the workers, right? Or they just totally cuss them out, speed off, you know what I mean? Like, just when you've seen people, get so pissed off when they get cut off, or you don't use a blinker right, and they throw their middle finger out of the window, or they lay on the horn, or they tailgate you, or they follow you. Like, those moments, as relatable as they can be, because we've all been there and we've all felt ourselves get really frustrated, it is a lack of emotional intelligence. It's a lack of your own control of yourself, no matter what is happening outside of you. It's like, even down to if your husband or your wife does the dishes wrong, or they make the bed wrong, or they say that they're going to clean, and by the time you get home from work, they haven't cleaned. Your response, if you're freaking out, arguing with them, screaming at them, just losing your mind, and then after the fact, you're like, man, I got real pissed off, and I said a lot of things I didn't mean to say, and I treated them terribly, or I don't even know why it was a big deal, or it caused a fight, and now we're not speaking to each other. Like, that is all lack of emotional intelligence. And the great thing about emotional intelligence is that it can be strengthened. It can be changed. So IQ, right? Your intelligence, if you were to take an IQ test, whatever your score is what your score is. That is your intelligence. It doesn't really change. You stay that way forever. Your intelligence is your intelligence. You're stuck with that IQ score. Your emotional intelligence, like if you were to take this assessment, right? Let's say you sign on as a one-on-one client, you take this assessment. If your score was just, let's say, an 88, it can improve over time. And actually, emotional intelligence does improve a lot of times over time in general, just because we're getting older and wiser. It can happen at a much quicker pace whenever you're actively doing the work and become stronger in certain categories. Okay, so another component of emotional intelligence is your self-expression, and this is obviously how you express yourself. It's your emotional expression, so that means like your constructive expression of your emotions, your ability to say exactly what you're feeling, okay, and do it from a good place where you feel understood because you're speaking clearly. Your assertiveness, so that's communicating your feelings and beliefs and doing it in a non-offensive way. Your independence, which is self-directed and free from emotional dependency. So that's your ability to basically show up for yourself and express yourself without people pleasing, without needing people to respond a certain way. So for instance, an example of that would be like, let's just say you bought a new dress or a new outfit. You're excited to share it with your partner. You put it on and you go to show them, and then they say that they do not like it. How you respond in that moment is a part of your emotional intelligence too. Do you get mad and start beating yourself up and blaming them and, change out of the dress and feel like they need to love it for you to love it and for you to be happy. And now the night's ruined because they don't like your dress. They don't like your outfit. Like, they're the worst. Why can't they be the partner that just says that they like it to make you feel good? Okay, that is like a lack of independence. If you cannot stand in what you like for you and you more so need approval from someone else, and you need them to like your decisions or just, make you feel happy because you don't feel it enough on your own, that's a lack of emotional intelligence as well. The third category of emotional intelligence is your interpersonal skills. And this is really how you interact with other people and a big part of leadership and what I'll be doing, helping people in corporate roles. So again, interpersonal relationships, and that means that both parties are satisfied. So if you're showing up to work every day and you hate your boss and you hate your coworkers, you might have a lower score in your interpersonal relationships. And if they are showing up and they're like, my team's the worst, they don't do anything that I say, we don't get along, I hate my job, I just wish that I had a better team, right? If you're a leader in your role and that's how you're feeling, then you may have low emotional intelligence as far as interpersonal relationships, because you don't really know how to satisfy what your team needs, or your team, doesn't know how to communicate their needs, and there's a disconnect there. Empathy is another category of just understanding and hearing how people feel. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with them. It means that you simply listen, okay? You're listening to understand, not listening to explain that you're right and they're wrong. We actually talked about that on the podcast a few episodes back. And then the last part of the interpersonal category is your social responsibility, your social consciousness, and how you're showing up in very dynamic group environments and contributing to that dynamic group environment, okay? So hopefully that helps you. How are you interacting with other people in your life? It doesn't even have to be in a work environment. It can be with your family, right? Whenever your family doesn't show up the way that you believe that they should as a family member. So let's say it's your mom. Maybe you and your mom don't have a traditional mom, daughter, son relationship, and you're spending all your time wishing it were different and wanting it to be different and mad at the world that you weren't giving a quote normal mom or normal dad or normal family environment, and you really feel upset about that, and it impacts your ability to interact with them and communicate with them and even share things with them, because you're needing them to be a certain way for you to feel better, then you might have a lower score in your interpersonal category of emotional intelligence. So the fourth out of 5, is your decision making. And this is going to be your problem solving and how you find your solutions when your emotions are involved. Okay, so this could be like in an emergency situation. How do you respond when you're under high stress? Okay, if your tire pops on the highway and you have your newborn in the back seat, are you frantic and frazzled and freaking out and crying and not, calm and cool and collected to be able to communicate with AAA or the people, the tow truck, or your family? Are you hysterical, or are you able to kind of show up calm, cool, and collected and say, this is the situation, this is the help that I need someone as soon as possible. It's dark, it's cold, I don't have all the things to be prepared, I'm needing some help. So how you solve problems whenever you're in them, okay? Reality testing is another subcategory of this, and that is your ability to be neutral. So we know I love talking about that. We have talked about several episodes with that. Again, being very curious, seeing things as neutral, because everybody gives their meaning something different. Everybody has a different meaning for some of the same things that we experience. Bringing it back to a tire popping, that is totally neutral until you have a belief about it. There are hundreds of thousands of people who their tire may pop and their first thought is, I'm so thankful it wasn't worse. I'm so thankful we weren't hurt. I'm so thankful I wasn't on the highway. I'm so thankful it didn't hurt someone else, let alone us. I'm just so grateful that even though the tire popped, we're okay. We have, insurance, or we have the money to get the tire fixed, or we have the ability to ask for help. We have a cell phone. You know what I mean? There are hundreds of thousands of people who, if their tire popped, it's like, it's okay. Okay. And then there are also hundreds of thousands of people, if their tire popped, again, neutral situation until we give it meaning, that would be like, this is the worst day ever. Now I'm not going to have a car to drive. Now I've got to go get another tire. This is very inconvenient. I'm late to work. This can't be happening. That's more money out of our pocket. Yeah, I didn't get hurt, but blah, 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 blah. I have to sit on the side of the highway. The tow truck took 6 hours. Okay, that is all your reality testing and how you kind of cope and see situations. So some people see the positive, the good, how it could maybe be worse, or other people might see it completely differently. And in this category of emotional intelligence, it's really your ability to come into the middle and see both sides. Okay, it's not saying you're bad if you see negative things, and it's not saying you're good if you see good things. It's saying come to the middle of every situation possible, see both sides, and then decide where you want to be. Okay. And the last part of that category is your impulse control. And that is your ability to resist or delay your impulse to act. And I had to exercise that today at McDonald's, because if I didn't have emotional intelligence in impulse control, I would have probably cussed her out, because cuss words were, happening in my head, but they never came out of my mouth because of my emotional intelligence. Like, I totally felt the humanness of wanting to cuss her out and just ask, questions that were, demeaning, because I was mad in the moment. But because of my strong, ability to know that lack of emotional intelligence is lack of impulse control. So this is whenever I say on the podcast, when emotions are high, intelligence is low. That means whenever our emotions are triggered, a lot of times we have a lack of impulse control. And you really do have to tap into your highest self to keep from saying what you want to say and doing what you want to do. And when I was doing my certification in this just, a week and a half ago, my instructor actually had, a client that we were looking at their scores. Of course, it had all their personal identifiable information blocked out, but their impulse control was like in the 60s. And that's, for an emotional intelligence assessment, that's, really low. It really means that for them, as soon as they're angry, as soon as they're sad, as soon as they're frustrated, as soon as they're upset, they respond in a way that they're not proud of later. Okay. And so that's a big thing that I think we work on in coaching a lot of times is, first we have the impulse, and then we come to coaching and we're like, this is what I did. This is what I said. But I'm able to see like why that wasn't helpful. And moving forward, when I feel this same trigger, I'll know to do XYZ different, or I'll know to lean into my body first, or feel my emotions first before responding to that person, or to that text message, or to that email from someone I can't stand at work. It's like, those are important skills. Okay, so the last piece, we're actually getting through this much faster than I thought. The last piece of your emotional intelligence is your stress management, okay? And obviously this means how you manage stress. And the subcategories in this area are your flexibility, so being able to adapt to stressful situations. Your stress tolerance, and that again is coping with stressful situations, and then your optimism, and that's your, attitude and outlook on life, even in stressful situations. And I would say my stress management was the lowest back when I took this in 2013, and it's actually now, 7-8 years later, it's improved greatly. But it is, of all of my 5 main categories, it's still the lowest, but it's above the national average. So I know for myself, because our work is never done, that the way that I handle stressful situations has room to improve, even though it's improved greatly from 8 years ago. So I hope that this episode really helps kind of hone in on what emotional intelligence, involves, and the work that you're doing and the work that we do together in coaching. It really brings more awareness to yourself and how you're responding to the things happening in the world. So think of how you responded when COVID first happened, when we were first put in masks, when there were mandates and everything shut down, when you lost your job, if you lost your job, or you were cut back from work, or if you were on the front lines, how you had to increase your hours at work and you weren't sleeping and you were seeing all of these stressful things. All of that revolves around emotional intelligence, how well you dealt with it. When all of the stuff was happening on social media where, there was a lot of division and divide in our country and a lot of fighting and arguing, were you the type of person to delete everybody because you were frustrated that they were different than you? Or were you the person that was able to get into a neutral zone and see multiple perspectives and multiple sides? Were you able to, set boundaries for yourself with maybe things you didn't want to see and do it in an emotionally intelligent way rather than in an angry, aggressive, I can't be around you way because we're so different? Those are just things to think about. And if you really want to improve your life, your relationships, your work environment, your relationship with certain people, your communication skills, how you parent, how you lead, how you show up in your corporate positions, or even as an entrepreneur and a CEO, these are skills that matter. They're skills that matter. And knowing where you fall is really important, because that means you can strengthen the areas where needs some work. Because when you improve that, everything else improves in your life. That's when you get your power back. A lot of times the reason we're suffering and we feel so miserable with things that are happening in our life is because we don't have the awareness of what's going awry. And emotional intelligence helps highlight the areas that are going awry and bring more attention to it so that you can actually fix it. Because again, without awareness, you can't fix it. You don't know there's a problem unless you're actually able to see where there is a problem, right? And if you don't see it, how can you fix it? So I'm excited for this. This is such an area, where I'm passionate. And again, moving forward, if this is something that you want to work on, it's great. You're in the right place. We do a lot of emotional intelligence focus and mindset focus, and just overall, the biggest part of, becoming your highest self is self-awareness work. And that's really what I'm about, and I'm an expert in, and continuing to do more work on myself so that I can continue being an expert in this area. It doesn't mean that I'm perfect. It just means that I'm always willing to look within myself. Okay. I'm always willing to improve myself and grow. It's never about perfectionism. It's always about your ability to see that there are growth opportunities for yourself and to take it and run with it so that you can live your best, most amazing, fulfilling life that you're really proud to live. Okay. So if you're interested in any of this, one-on-one coaching is the way to go. My prices are raising in 2022. So if you want to secure a 6-month or 12-month contract at the current rate, you will need to do that before the end of December. When you sign up, this is going to be the first thing that we do. The first thing that we're going to do is an emotional intelligence assessment so that you know exactly where you fall and you can tell me what you want to work on. Just because you have a low score in an area and I am able to read that to you doesn't mean that is necessarily an area you may want to work on. Sure, I'm assuming most people will if it's a lower area, but if you see something else that stands out to you, we'll talk about it, okay? And if you have any questions about this, let me know. Also, if you're interested in this from a corporate level, there is a lot of amazing information that I can share with you. Again, my coaching is also going into the direction of helping executive level leaders. So if you're higher up in your company, if you're leading and in charge of other people and you want to enhance these skills, you can either, have HR get in contact with me and we can see if I'm a good fit for the company to be able to provide these services for you, or you can even approach HR and see if there is room in the budget for you to do this, because it affects a company's bottom line, right? It's going to, when you are emotionally intelligent as a leader, it keeps the turnover rate from being high. It allows you to get your work done. When you're taken care of, everybody else can be taken care of, okay? So it's really important. And if you have any questions about any of this, you can reach out to me and you can find more information on all of this at MaceyRenee.com. Thanks for sticking with me for this longer episode. I hope you have an amazing week and I'll see you all next Monday.